So my name is Anamik Saha. I'm a senior lecturer at Goldsmiths, University of London, and I'm working with the Centre on Dynamics of Ethnicity on Work Package 6. So Work Package 6 is called Entry into Creative Industries, the impact of the COVID-19 lockdown and Black Lives Matter protests on ethnically diverse cultural workers and diversity initiatives. So essentially the package does what the title says. We're looking at the impact of COVID-19 and the lockdown specifically on the careers of people from ethnically diverse backgrounds who are trying to make it into creative and cultural industries. In recent years, there's been a big push on the part of media and cultural organisations to make their workforces more diverse, to better reflect the diversity of the nation. And there have been a whole host of initiatives put in place across different creative sectors. And we want to look at, well, what is the impact of COVID-19 and the lockdown specifically on these initiatives? Because obviously a lot of these organisations and institutions are going through great financial hardship right now, especially if they're relying on people, on audiences, physical audiences. We're working with a general hypothesis that maybe diversity initiatives, when so many organisations are faced with having to cut costs, to what extent are diversity initiatives, up there? So that's what we want to look at. What's really interesting for us as well is that in the middle of the lockdown, you see the re-eruption of Black Lives Matter protests across the globe, not least in nations like the United Kingdom. And what's really unique about this particular moment in July 2020 is that media and cultural institutions and organisations who historically have shied away from making any kind of political pronouncements, pretty much across the board, all released statements showing their support for the Black Lives Matter movement. And in that moment as well, they articulated a desire to do better in terms of addressing issues of racism within their own organisations and doing better in terms of facilitating diversity, increasing diversity within their organisations and institutions. So this is a really interesting moment, I think, in which to explore the experience of ethnically diverse cultural workers in particular. So for this project, we are working with an organisation, a very important organisation called Creative Access. And so they have become a major conduit for getting young people, especially from ethnically diverse backgrounds, into these industries, into industries that have historically marginalised them. They're an amazing organisation who work with over 400 partners, including employers of all sizes and scales, from the big institutions like BBC or Apple or Penguin Random House to smaller media organisations. And so they've had a tremendous impact. They have around 30,000 people on their mailing list, who are people who are current interns or candidates or have gone through the Creative Access system in some respect. So we're very lucky to be working with Creative Access, who have played such a major role in helping to diversify creative and cultural industries. Firstly, doing a survey of all the people on their mailing list, or part of their network rather, asking them about the impact of COVID-19 lockdown upon their careers. So looking at what they were doing before the lockdown happened and what they've been doing since then. And also we'll be conducting in-depth interviews with a sample of Creative Access members, asking them more in-depth questions about their experiences during lockdown, including starting off with their aspirations, why they want to enter these industries in the first place, and what has been their experience since. On the one hand, obviously, lockdown has had a detrimental effect on young people's careers in terms of what they are able to do, in terms of the number of opportunities they have. But again, in this Black Lives Matter moment, all of a sudden, being from a particular racial and ethnic background is weirdly gives you advantage might be too strong a word, but there's definitely a greater impetus to include people from ethnically diverse backgrounds within these organizations. So we want to kind of explore that paradox, if you like, through, as I say, survey methods and interviews as well. So what I think makes this work package really important, and why I think it could potentially make a big impact, is because it's one of the first in-depth studies of the impact of lockdown and Black Lives Matter on the experiences of ethnically diverse cultural workers. There's been a lot written about in terms of general structural inequalities within these industries. A big chunk of that research has looked specifically at racial and ethnic inequalities. When I recently conducted some research on the publishing industry, it took me into the offices and headquarters of all the major publishing houses. Obviously, this is before lockdown. And nearly all the Black, Brown, Asian people I encountered in those spaces came via creative access. So they really are an important conduit. And so being able to work with them and getting access to their networks means that we can get, hopefully, a really strong sample of ethnically diverse cultural workers, which normally it's really hard to kind of access and reach all those people. So by working with creative access, I think it's going to allow us to hopefully get a very large sample of survey responses. We hope that this project will have a direct impact upon employers, to give them an insight into the specific and particular challenges that their kind of employees or interns from ethnically diverse backgrounds are encountering right now during this lockdown. And also, we hope that the project can, as a consequence, impact upon policy initiatives. So kind of helping create policies that can support those attempts to diversify organizations, and to keep these issues high on the agenda. That's, I think, our main aim is to make sure that issues of diversity in creative and cultural industries does not slip off the radar at this tremendously difficult time for everyone.